Welcome back. Of course, the Saskatchewan Provincial election campaign kicked off earlier this week, and we have none other than the Premier of the province, Brad Wall, joining us here in studio in Prince Albert. Welcome to Prince Albert.
Thanks very much.
I know you're here to make an announcement to do with credits for people who are active in sports, young people. We'll get to that a little bit later. The one big issue and topic that's been talked about here in Prince Albert, of course, we have the problem with the Diefenbaker Bridge.
Yes.
And there are people here who are, thinking or wanting a second crossing here in Prince Albert. We have talked to our local MLA and heard what he's had to say on it. But why not a second bridge for Prince Albert at this time?
Well, actually, we think a second bridge for Prince Albert is an idea that needs to be developed. Certainly, we've, as you know, the Minister of Highways was here prior to the election, met with Mayor and Council to explore some more siting studies that can be done. We made a commitment to invest in that so the final decision can be taken. Even in opposition, I remember fighting for the city of Prince Albert when the NDP government refused to cover the cost of repairing the existing bridge. We know that this is a gateway to the north. We know how important Diefenbaker Bridge is, how important a second one is. And obviously we're very open to pursuing that second bridge. Some things need to be discussed on siting. And that needs to happen. I would just say this. We've heard from the opposition as well. They've made their announcement that they're going to build a $100 million bridge.
Let's comment on that then.
Sure.
The NDP, yes, have said that they will go ahead and build a second crossing here in PA, citing all the natural resources in the north, et cetera, and that inevitably we're going to need that crossing. How come the Sask party isn't pushing that agenda a little bit more?
Well, I think first of all, when it comes to economic development in the North and Prince Albert area, I think we've led in this regard. We've got that mill reopened. We worked very hard with forestry partners to get the mill back working again soon, and of course the same is true at the sawmill at Big River. We know that'll cause actually increased demand for transportation infrastructure, and so the bridge is very much part of the work we're doing. The NDP have promised a bridge to nowhere. They've cited the fact that this is a $100 million bridge. And they've allocated in their plan, if they're elected, $50 million. You ask them, where's the other 50 coming from? They say the feds. I met with the Prime Minister a couple times in the last month. They've heard nothing of the plan. So that's the challenge. We've got to make sure it's realistic and doable. The
bridge obviously would be very expensive, and whether it's built 5, 10, 20 years from down the road, but it's going to take money. And I know the opposition is pushing you to increase royalties from the Potash Corporation. Increased royalties could build bridges, it could repair roads, it can build hospitals, and it can lure doctors to our communities. How come you're saying no to that?
It could cost jobs. Here's why. The royalty structure we have now has our potash royalties higher than anywhere else on earth. We've got half the potash in Saskatchewan, half of it somewhere else. So it was the NDP under Mr. Calvert with our support that said, let's provide temporary incentives to the companies, so that temporary royalty incentives, so that those companies will do their expansions in the province. And guess what? It's working. $12 billion in expansion underway in this province, thousands of jobs being created. And what the NDP are saying is, let's break the rules with these companies. Let's break the NDP's actual deal with these companies midstream. Those incentives will be earned soon. Royalties will return to their full rate. And in the meantime, we'll have attracted those jobs and that economic development. And I think the NDP now, by the way, have had several different stories on this. First, they said they would increase the royalties. Then they said they'd do a review and may not increase them if the review said no. Now they're saying, no, there'll be a royalty increase and a review, but they're not prejudging the review. It seems like it's written on the back of a napkin, and I don't think it's good economic policy.
There's a perception that some people at Potash Corp are making millions of dollars, and they're very wealthy individuals, and they're profiting handsomely from this Saskatchewan resource. And while other people are seeing that, and they're seeing a lot of poverty in our cities at the same time. Well,
the potash royalties are coming in certainly to the province of Saskatchewan, and we're reinvesting that in quality of life issues in healthcare and education. You also need to make sure the economy is growing so we can afford a quality of life. And I'll tell you, these are the royalty structure we have was implemented by the NDP. We supported it, and it was a way to provide temporary royalty incentives so that we could attract the expansions and the new jobs here. Those incentives will be soon earned, and the expansions will be done. We'll be back to that full royalty rate. It was the right thing to do then. It's the right thing to do now. And at a time of international economic volatility, the NDP are campaigning on structural change to our economic policy at a time when we're leading the country. I just don't think that's right for the province right now.
Change gears a little bit. It's a Canada-wide issue with doctor shortages and crises. We have buildings and hospitals built, I believe, in Shelbrook here that have shut down before they could even fill it with staff. What can you do? What are some of your ideas to address the problem of doctor shortages and lack of health facilities, especially here in central and northern Saskatchewan?
Well, we have, since our election as a government, we have 900 more nurses working in the province and 200 more doctors, actually, than when we were elected. Not enough yet. There is a doctor shortage right across the country. You're absolutely right. So we need to deploy and use nurse practitioners to a greater extent. We do need a pool of temporary help for doctors. We'll be talking about that more in the campaign. And here's something else we need to do, and we are doing it now as a result of our government's initiative. We need to train more doctors in this province. So we're near doubling the training seats at the University of Saskatchewan. We're near doubling the residency positions, something that needed to happen years ago, but the previous administration didn't get it done. So we know there's still a challenge out there and work to be done, but we are making some progress. Okay.
Another issue in the city of Prince Albert and indeed across Saskatchewan are the issues of crime and addictions and homelessness. How would you battle that? I mean, I know the other party has, I guess, a reputation for being kinder to those sorts of issues or more generous. What's your take on that?
You know, if that's the reputation, I'm not sure that it's earned. We inherited, for example, a wait list of people with intellectual disability, 440 plus waiting for the dignity of a residence.
Okay.
We set out a plan to eliminate that wait list. We're halfway through it. We were the first government in the country to actually index things like the housing allowance that we have in the province for those who are most vulnerable. We dropped 114,000 low-income people from the provincial tax rolls with changes. We have a $250 million housing program with 4,600 new public units that will be built in this province and incentives for more rental housing. And we're working very hard to address these issues. A growing economy is good, but people do need to benefit from it, and we've been working hard to make sure that happens with more work to do.
Okay. My final question. I am newly arrived in Saskatchewan.
Welcome.
Last time I voted in a provincial election was in British Columbia, so I'm still undecided.
Yeah.
Why should I vote for a Brad Wall government?
Well, I think the province right now is leading the country economically, and that's notwithstanding the challenges we've identified here that we're still working on. The best way for us to deal meaningfully with the challenges we have that stem from growth, housing, infrastructure, is for us to have a broad and expanding tax base, is for us to continue to grow, to stay on this track of leading the country. And our vision has always been for a growing province, but not for the sake of growth in the end, but for the sake of a better quality of life, reinvesting the dividends of that growth in healthcare and education and social services, in paying off more debt and lowering taxes. Right now we have opposition that's already in day 2 of the campaign promised, I think, $1.3 billion in spending. That's a deficit budget. So I think moving the province forward, and the alternative at this point is what I'd suggest and present to you respectfully as food for thought as you think about what you're going to do on the 7th of November.
Okay. Sir, Premier of Saskatchewan, Brad Wall, thanks very much for joining us, and welcome to PA, and I hope you enjoy your time here.
It's great to be back. Thank you.